Hi, my name is Monica Talan. Welcome to If I Only Had 10 Minutes. I'm one of the partners at Comes Collective, and I'm actually really excited about this conversation because I've known Rosemary for so many years. Welcome, Rosemary. Tell us a little bit about you.
Hey Monica, it's so good to see you. And in this capacity,
That's
I'm
okay.
excited to be here for If I Only Had 10 Minutes.
So, you've been in media for years. What's your vantage point, or how are you looking at it when it comes to AI, especially in your role?
In terms of the media industry, I sort of look at it through important pillars, right? There's the what's the balance of human creativity and automation? And I think that's the sweet spot is how do we get that right? And I think we're all trying to figure that out in real time, right? Media entities are the backbone of media is human creativity, but there's obviously a lot of potential that leading into the technology and the innovation it sort of unlocks. So what is the ethical way to do it? What is the way that it's editorially sound? And what's the way that leverages the best of the technology but preserves that human creativity, right? And look, it's changing massively in real time. We've seen an AI generated actress and get nominations. We've seen an AI generated country song was the number one song on the Billboard charts last month, right? So it's something that I think companies are looking to or working in real time to reconcile. And I think the other one is around information and trust, right? Or disinformation and a lack of trust, which already existed before AI. And AI has the potential to sort of exacerbate that. But I think there's the flip side of that. There's a lot that we can do to deploy the technology to make sure that we're verifying not just information, but images, right? I think the role of media becomes even more important in this fractured untrusted, is that a word? Things aren't trusted.
You were actually part of our Responsible AI Comms Lab, and I'm curious to see how what it or did it change anything in your thinking about responsible AI, especially in media and the newsroom?
I think it was probably one of the best things that I did for myself this year, like without exaggeration, because look, it's changing. Everything is changing so fast. I joked with you during that lab that every day I woke up to a massive headline of something that's happened globally, while just in the time that I was in the class, right? And so I think for me, it gave me a platform to make sense of it all. It gave me a community to sort of kick things around with. And it helped me to think about it with more rigor as it relates to my job, to my work. As I think about the gaps that it represents, as someone that's leading comms at a global organization today, but also how it also makes me feel like inadequate, like I'm behind. What more can we be doing to leverage all the good that is there?
And like you said, it's moving so fast. So you're, I think in communications, you probably have one of the highest high pressure jobs because it's so visible, right? Anything that happens is so visible. So how do you handle it behind the scenes?
How do I handle it behind the scenes? Look, I think a couple of things. I'm an overthinker by nature, and I think in those kinds of moments, I'd like to think of it as if I reposition that attribute is that I leave no stone left unturned. And in a crisis, sometimes the obvious it's not obvious, right? It's a simple solution that is not obvious. I've also learned, I wasn't always this way, but I've also learned that you have to take care of yourself in real time because you don't know when the crisis is going to end. You know, and I know you're the same way, Monica. You don't sort of wish for a crisis, but you also thrive in those moments. You sort of live for those moments where the adrenaline is pumping and you're pulling on all the things, but it's not sustainable for a long time. And so it's certainly early days. You don't know how long you're going to be going. I think I've gotten a lot better of like, somebody think about food, somebody think about this, somebody think about the quality of food, somebody think about those other things that I'm not going to think about, but I know are the fuel that you need to keep going. Um, and I think the other one, you might relate to this one too, is sort of I've come to realize that it's about excellence, not perfection. there's the North Star, you know where you're going. It might take a curve, a turn or two here, but I think it helps to preserve the overall energy and the momentum if you don't sort of waste energy and time on little bumps in the road. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
especially, yes, especially on a crisis, right?
Especially
Uh,
in a crisis, right? Because you know you're
mhm.
trying to get to a place and it's just like, is that gonna do or die or just keep going? Because you know you need the gas in the tank.
Yes. And you know, I'm going to have to ask you about fractional because it is Comms Collective and this is our podcast. And actually, the idea of fractional first came to me when I worked with you or partnered with you when one of your team members was going on maternity leave and I was able to jump in, I think, and provide support. So, how do you think fractional can bring value to full-time teams?
Look, I think fractional is really interesting, right? Because it thinks it gives you, as a CCO, it gives you some flexibility, and in uncertain times, you need to call on different tools in the skill set. And so what I loved about that moment is that you genuinely came in to fill a business need. In this case, it was a mat leaf cover. But you came with such a wealth of experience, right? We were lucky to be able to get you, right? And so I think in that example, it was a scenario where we filled the gap, but we got so much more than we bargained for. I think it was a non-threatening way that we got all boats to rise, right? I think you're not interested in coming in for a permanent job. You made that clear from the beginning. That wasn't the terms of the engagement, but you were so open to contribute to that project and beyond and to mentor along the way. And as you think about, particularly in the media industry right now, so much upheaval, so much turmoil, so much turnover, but at the same time, even more competitive for market share, even more competitive for a share of voice. I think it gives the fractional element is an interesting tool in the toolkit.
So you've had such a diverse career. You've been in media for a long time, but you've done other things, including working for God. What's the boldest career move you've made?
Boldest career moves. I guess there was the two that come to mind, and it's interesting because one was very early in my career, in my early 20s, and one was very recently. And it was sort of the two times in my career where I threw the playbook out the window, right? And I'm cognizant that on paper, what I did didn't make sense. And I'm kind of like a type A rule book type of person. So there were two moments that most people in my life were like, "What are you doing? She's lost her mind." In my early 20s, I quit my job, sold my car, picked up and moved abroad to try and find work. And I didn't have work and I didn't have a wealth of experience to get sponsored. And this was right after 9/11. So trying to get out there and get sponsored in another country with no experience was not easy. But I was young and, that had young ambition, blind, heavy on the blind ambition, and, was able to do that. And then the other was, a few years ago when I stepped down from my CCO job, again, a personal decision to go. And I think in both cases, as I reflect what was going on, it was sort of me turning down the volume of the noise of what everyone thought I should be doing and sort of following my instinct. And in both cases, I feel like I did right by myself. In the early career move, I ended up landing at an agency, getting sponsored, and having an incredible 2-year run at an agency very early on in my career, learning a lot as a human being, but also as a professional and skills that I think helped me accelerate my career when I came back to the States. And this more recent one, stepping down from the CCO job, I think from both of them, but particularly from that one, you sort of realize that you need the reminder sometimes. And the thing that I realized as I came out of that was that I had my own identity, and there's a value that I bring in who I am that's not tied to the title or the brand, right? And there's something very freeing, but also very empowering around that, and helps you sort of come back with more gas in the tank. At least it was the case for both of my examples.
That's amazing. Now, I know we have to wrap it up, so I do have to ask you if you had only an additional 10 minutes in your day, what would you do with those 10 minutes?
Oh, this is easy. It would be around silence, right? And meditation. It's the hardest thing for me to do. It is a practice because I'm terrible at it. But if you think about those moments when you break away, when you're in the shower or you're sitting by a pool, it's when you turn down the noise, things, problems, ideas, they just crystallize so easily. The challenge is turning down the volume. So if I had 10 minutes, it would just be 10 more minutes that I try to find for peace and silence.
That's amazing. Amazing. Thank you for joining us, Miss Rosemary. This has been fun. We'll have to do it again.
Thank you so much.